I'm pretty sure my parents' house was haunted. I'm sure it didn't help that me and my brothers used to play with an Ouija board there, but it was a Milton Bradley, and we were dumb kids, so who knows. Anyways, it was summertime, my dad was at work, my mum and my youngest brother were out shopping, and it was just me and my other brother, 2 years younger, in the house. It was maybe late morning, and I must have been 13 or 14. I was in the kitchen doing dishes, which was one of my chores, and my brother had just woken up from hearing a noise in the kitchen, thinking it was our mum. We called out and said, "Mum, we're going to take a shower," in case someone called on the telephone for him. This is the 80s. I ignored him and kept doing the dishes, and again he calls out that he's going to take a shower, and I'm thinking, idiot, she's not even here. So he calls out again that he's going to take a shower, and then we hear a woman's voice that says, "Go ahead." I immediately stop and turn around because I know my mum isn't home, and we're the only two there. Scared, I call out to my brother. I'm in the kitchen and there's a wall between us and the living room, and then a hallway to where my brother was, so there is some distance from ourselves. And I say, "Mum isn't here." He looks at me irritated, like, why am I so freaked out? And I say again, "Mum's not here." He said something like, "Don't be stupid. She just said go ahead." I'm ready to cry because I'm freaked out by that woman's voice, which wasn't my mum's. And he starts to understand what I'm saying. So he's the rational one and starts looking around the house, thinking she was home and we didn't notice. I told him she's not home and hadn't come back from shopping yet. It was summertime, so all the windows were closed and the air conditioning was on. We went outside to check around the house, and there was no one outside either. There's quite a bit of space between the houses, so there would have been no way it was a neighbour. We checked the garage and my mum had not returned. Not only that, we both heard the voice inside the house from the living room area. When my mum and little brother got home later that afternoon, we didn't mention the voice we heard. We were both pretty spooked and blamed it on playing with the Ouija board. We got rid of it soon after, but that didn't end some of the incidents in the house. I was in the 3rd grade when this happened. I'm now a senior in high school. And to this day, I remember it like it was yesterday. And I can promise you, I was not delusional. It was as clear as day. It was around 1 or 2 in the morning, maybe even later than that. I stayed up watching TV all night, even knowing I had school the next morning, and everyone else was asleep. I'd snuck to the living room from my room and nobody was awake. I was watching Family Guy. Very faintly from the room behind the living room, I heard a woman's voice soft singing. At first, I could not make out what it was, and I thought nothing of it. And I muted the TV to be sure I wasn't hearing something from it. The singing stopped, so I was like, okay, must be from the TV. I unmuted and kept watching, and the singing started again a few minutes later. And this time it was clearer. I could tell it was a song, Silent Night. So I muted the TV again and it stopped again. And at this point I'm scared to even move. I thought it was my mum or someone trying to trick me because they caught me awake in the middle of the night. So I turned off the TV and laid my head down to go to sleep. And sure enough, a few minutes later, I heard the singing again. Still very faintly, and it stops. I laid awake another little while to see if I could catch it again, but no. It just all of a sudden disappeared. I eventually fell asleep, got up a few hours later, My parents and my brother knew nothing of the experience until it came to the weekend, so I didn't have to tell them I was awake all night in the middle of a school week. I told my mum about what happened, and come to find out, Silent Night was my great-grandmother's favourite song. My great-grandmother passed away a month before my babysitter was born in 2007. She was so excited to meet her, but didn't get the chance. I believe she was singing to her in spirit, and she didn't get the chance in life. Everything that I'm about to bring to your attention has been happening to me and my best friend, and I can tell you that whatever I'm dealing with is 100% real. It all started about a year ago, maybe a little earlier, not to my knowledge. My best friend Ali had been picked on by something she could not see. It knocked above her head, and it used to do this constantly. I used to tell it to leave her alone and shit because it was starting to creep me out too. Whatever was at her house eventually moved to my house, and she believes it was my house all along. But I've never had a bad feeling here, except for when I was a little kid. I could never find the courage to sleep in my own bedroom, which, I guess, was normal as a kid. And one day I was sitting in my room, alone, and I got a call from my friend, and she proceeded to tell me that she and her friend Sandra were communicating to a spirit box. Apparently, this thing said my name in a very low, raspy voice. My name is very unique, and there are no ties to me being there at all. And I was shocked that it pronounced my name correctly. After that, I was freaked out, and I got in my car and drove straight over for a cleanse. I got there, and we talked to it again. I know this is not what I should have done, but what can I say? I was curious. We asked for its name, and no, shortly after, we heard a female's voice say, "Michael." A couple of seconds later, the same voice that said my name, according to Ali and Sandra, said, "Shit." Like another spirit was calling out to another. It was strange, and after a while there was a silence from the spirit box, and then it said, "I'm not really listening to you." What? The day after this is when it starts to finally get really freaky. I still somewhat considered myself as a skeptic at this time. I was putting my stepdaughter to bed, and I was sitting on the floor, and I got a strange feeling in the pit of my stomach. I got in bed with my stepdaughter. I looked over to the window and saw her blinds were open, so I decided to get up and close them. I wrapped the cords to the blinds around the curtain rod, so my 2-year-old couldn't play with it. As I started to unwrap the cord, I felt a quick brush of air of someone grabbing my arm and yanked it away from the blinds. My initial reaction was to swing my arms back because it genuinely scared me. I turned around only to be frozen in my steps. There wasn't anyone there. It happened so fast, and I knew there was no way it was my boyfriend. I ran into my bedroom pale as could be, shaking and crying. My boyfriend, who was a skeptic, looked at me and knew something was wrong. He asked me, "What happened? Are you okay?" I proceeded to tell him what happened and told him to get back to our daughter. I could not go back in there. And I didn't for a very long time. She slept with us that night, and I'll still never be able to explain it. It happened when I was most vulnerable. Months passed and my boyfriend and I heard thumping coming from the crawl space right underneath our bed. And it came in knocks of 3. It shook the floor on the bed, and we knew it wasn't his daughter because she had been asleep and there's no way she could possibly make that much noise. We had anxiety, but eventually we ignored it and forgot about it. One time, we were taking a bath, and I got really hot and started shaking uncontrollably. And I thought I saw something crawling on the ground, but there was nothing there. Maybe my mum was playing tricks on me. Maybe the bath water was too hot. I was catching my dad's girlfriend up on what has been going on over the past year, and again, my boyfriend's daughter got out of bed so naturally, I go to put her back down. By the time I come back and sit down, my dad's girlfriend looked at me and said, "What the fuck is going on with your arm?" There were scratches all over it, but it looked like lettering. She told me it looked like a W-I, but I looked at it and it said M-I for Michael. I have a picture of it, and I've been cleansing and praying since then, and it started to chill out a little. But I'll update you guys on other things that have happened if you'd like to hear more. This story happened a few years ago, before my husband and I bought our first house. We were living in a rent out, and it was your standard 3-bed, 2-bath and 2-car garage with a decent yard for the dogs. At the time, I worked overnights at a grocery store, so I'd make it home usually before my husband left for his day job, or sometimes even before he was awake. I would make a snack and relax in the living room, which shared a wall with the master bedroom, and I could sometimes hear him snore, even with the bedroom door closed. So it was possible to hear, noise from the living room in our bedroom and vice versa. I'd eventually see him off for work and then go back to sleep myself. I had blackout curtains, so to mimic night time. And we'd usually close the door to the room and it would be dark as possible. We'd been in this house for a little over a year, but nothing weird started happening until our roommates moved out. We unfortunately had bad blood, but they chose to move out. About a month after that, I left and I started hearing what sounded like two men having a conversation in the living room. It was low. Low enough not to be able to make out what they were saying, but loud enough to hear that someone was talking. First time it happened, I thought perhaps it was the landlord and the repairmen. They knew I worked nights, and I had given them permission to enter if I was asleep to do any maintenance that needed done. So naturally, I choked it up to that, rolled over and went to sleep. Several days later it happened again, and this time I knew we didn't need any maintenance done, and no one should have been in the house other than me. So I slowly got out of bed, still able to hear the voices talking. Again, two men. I slowly crept out the door, and as quietly as possible, I turned the handle to crack open the door as silently as I could. The voices stopped. I thought perhaps they had heard me, so I called out, "Hello?" expecting to hear my landlord's voice respond. He did a lot of repairs himself at the house, and this had been his wife's first home. But no response, no sound. So I opened the door wide in expectation to see people standing in the living room, but no one was there. I searched the house, checked the locks and the garage door. Nothing was out of place and the locks were still locked. It spooked me, so I brought the dogs inside, and somehow that made me feel safer. They both curled up at the end of the bed for the rest of the day, so I attempted to fall asleep. This continued for months. I never brought it up to my husband, since he was a bit of a skeptic to the paranormal, until one night, we were sitting in the living room after dinner. I had the night off, so we stayed up later than normal just to spend time together. We were talking about the show we were watching, Ghost Adventures, how appropriate, and how we thought Zach was a moron. He then went completely silent mid-sentence and started staring into the dining room. The living room had a perfect view of the dining room from the front window, and I asked what was wrong. He asked, "Where's the cat?" as we just recently gotten a new kitten. The dogs were outside, and as soon as he asked where the cat was, the cat came wandering aimlessly from the opposite end of the living room from where the guest bedrooms were. Opposite of where the dining room entrance was, I pointed to the cat, and he slowly looked at the cat back into the dining room, which was pretty dark, all except for two glowing silver eyes sitting about cat height under the dining room table. I locked eyes with it and my entire body went cold. It felt like it was looking through me, into my soul or something. They were unblinking and they didn't move until after what felt like a few hours, even though it was a mere moment. I jumped up and ran to turn the light on and look under the table for there to be nothing under there. My husband and I turned the channel to something else and neither of us got much sleep that night. This happened about a month and a half before our lease was up. We moved, and I've had weird things happen to me my entire life, but nothing as bizarre as that. This is a collection of ghost encounters that have happened to me over the years, and I can assure you that the following stories are 100% true. The first stories are what I like to call the closet. I was standing in the closet of my grandma's apartment, which was my playroom at the time, while she was right outside. She was playing on her computer and watching a show. All of a sudden, from right beside me, I heard someone making a cartoony ghost "ooh" noises. And my grandma yelled for me to be quiet because she was trying to watch her show. I ran from the closet and didn't go back there for a while. The second story is called Shadow Hat Man. My grandma had just moved into apartment 113 and we were getting ready to go to bed. She didn't have a lot of furniture at the time, so I slept on the floor with blankets and she slept on a mattress also on the floor. She had a stand and a TV and a big white dresser, and she was fast asleep as I was watching TV, unable to sleep. I looked out in the hallway to see a super tall shadow with the outline of a trench coat and a top hat gliding into the bathroom, and then I heard the bathroom door slam shut. I freaked out and woke my grandma telling there was an intruder, and she got up to look. The bathroom door, which I had absolutely heard slam shut, was still open, but the shower curtain had been pulled closed. Nobody was in the tub. Annoyed at me having been woken up, she told me to go back to bed. And as soon as we laid back down, all of my toys went off at once. It lasted about 3 seconds, and then they all turned off again. This one's called The Theatre, and it was about mid-February. My dad, Pap, and all went to the movie to watch a theatre with a cartoon movie. This one's called The Theatre. It was about mid-February and my dad, Pap and I all went down to the movie theatre to watch some cartoon movie that had finally reached our theatre. Due to the snow and cold, not a lot of people had shown up. In the middle of the seats there was nobody behind us and nobody in the first 2 rows in front of us. My Pap sat on the very end, my dad sat next to him, and I sat next to my dad. The rest of the row was completely empty. Randomly, the seat beside me went down. It stayed down for a good 30 seconds, then went back up. I was terrified and confused. My dad only made a joke saying a ghost wanted to watch too, and he doesn't really believe in the paranormal. This next one I call The Movie Jumped Off by Itself. My grandma and I had been settled into a new apartment for a few months, and by now we were watching a movie called Hush Little Baby. The DVD had been in the case to The Lady and the Tramp. The case was sitting vertically on the stand, which had a bar across it, the whole way round as part of the decoration. About 45 minutes to an hour into the movie, the empty DVD case flew off the stand, over the bar, and landed on the floor a few feet from where I was sitting. My grandma calmly said, "Des, the movie case jumped off the stand, will you please pick it back up?" I was bewildered, but as she asked, nothing else weird happened after that. The next one is regarding things going missing, and my missing cup. In the same apartment, my grandma one day was disgruntled because she couldn't find her cup. She'd like to have those large water bottle type cups with straws in it. She couldn't find it anywhere, so my aunt and I helped her look, and we tore apart the entire apartment looking for this cup. A few days later, she told us that she came out of the kitchen to see the very top cupboard open. We can't even reach it standing on chairs, not even one of us. And in the cupboard was a missing cup. After this several times, my stuff or her stuff would go missing and show up in random places, or not at all. Man in the garage on my birthday. It was my 14th birthday, and I had over a few friends. We were laughing and having a good time when one of them pointed to the neighbour's garage and went, there's a man watching us. We all looked up to see a pale as paper elderly man wearing a red flannel with stark white wispy hair glaring down at us. Problem? He was standing in the window of the attic to the garage, which had been closed off inevitably. Nobody could possibly get up there, and there isn't even a staircase to climb, aside from it being completely boarded up. My dad would light, it's just a trick of the light, and made us all go with him to stand directly under the window, and the man had vanished. We went back to our yard, and he still hadn't reappeared, and to this day, I haven't seen the trick of the light ever again. Light turning off after Pat died. When I was 14, my grandfather, whom my father had lived with all my life, had died suffering 3 strokes. Losing him was one of the first real deaths I had to deal with, and it was a very rough time. That summer, we'd been working to try and fix a lamp that someone wanted to throw out. My grandfather was a bit of a hoarder, and he wanted to keep everything he thought had the slightest value. Despite all of our efforts, the lamp never worked, even with a brand new bulb in it. After he died, I sat in the room missing him like crazy, and I felt the urge to plug in the lamp, but nothing happened. I remember sinking to the floor with my back against my bed crying because it was all sinking in that he was really gone. As I cried, I felt a sort of calmness wash over me, and I looked up to see that the lamp had turned on. To this very day, it's the one that I use in my room. The week after he died, I also noticed random items showing up. Old rings, necklaces, a rubber bracelet, just junk that I'd never really owned or that my dad didn't recognise. I felt like it was my pap giving me a reminder that he's still around.